a number of recent articles, some of them written by eminent scientists, have stated that if you're looking to lose body fat, exercise is basically a waste of time. Now, that really doesn't make sense from a physiological viewpoint, because exercise burns calories, and to lose weight, you have to lower your calories. That's the basic law of thermodynamics. Everybody knows that. So why wouldn't exercise help you lose body fat? In other words, these people are saying that 97%, 98% of fat loss is related purely to diet, mainly a reduction in calories. That itself is questionable, because all calories are not the same. I would challenge that, because there's hormonal effects involved. Certain types of calories stimulate different hormonal changes in others. I'm not going to get into that in this video. I've covered that extensively in my Applied Metabolics newsletter. What I want to talk about here is exercise. Well, not directly exercise in relation to fat loss, but a couple of myths are surrounding that. Now, what is the ostensible reason why exercise, which is known to burn calories? I mean, you look at some of the elite bodybuilders, top bodybuilders, they usually include aerobics as part of their training preparation to get ready for a major contest. Why would they be doing aerobics if it doesn't help them lose body fat? Well, actually, aerobics does help you lose body fat, because fat is burned in the presence of oxygen, and aerobics involves the greatest use of or greatest intake of oxygen. So doing aerobics makes sense if you want to lose body fat, and it does burn calories. But what possible reason could, with such obvious proof, how could somebody say that exercise doesn't help you lose body fat? The reasoning is very simple. They say that the reason that exercise doesn't help you lose body fat is, first of all, you don't burn enough calories through exercise. They're thinking, they're looking at people's, 15-minute, half-hour workout. It's true, it doesn't burn a lot of calories, and you would have to go on a strict diet to lose weight, or specifically body fat, if you did very short workouts. Even a typical weight workout that lasts an hour, again, depending on intensity level, how fast you move, but it averages only about 300 calories, a 1 hour weight workout. So, and a pound of fat is about 3,500 calories. So, but it's a cumulative effect. If you keep working out, you eventually dig into the calories and blah, 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 you wind up losing body fat. But the ostensible reason given for why exercise is, let's say, not effective for fat loss is because exercise, so say these experts, and I put experts in parentheses, they claim that it stimulates the appetite to the extent that when you exercise, especially when you exercise hard, you get so hungry afterwards that you wind up putting the calories that you burn during exercise right back into your body, making exercise ineffective for body fat loss purposes. Of course, this doesn't mean exercise isn't good for other purposes like cardiovascular conditioning and several other beneficial effects such as brain effects and so on and so forth. But as far as fat loss goes, these people say that it really doesn't really help with fat loss. There was a book called Good Calories, Bad Calories, written by a journalist, science journalist named Gary Taubes. He had some good information in the book, but one of the things that caught my attention when I read his book was he said several times in the book that exercise is completely ineffective for fat loss. And I know from my 60 years of experience working out how nonsensical and stupid that is. I've also seen countless people who've, yes, they've dieted, but they've used exercise. And I've also seen people that just went on diets and didn't do exercise. They lost weight, but it turns out over 50% of the weight they lost was muscle, which is very bad, because when you lose muscle, your resting metabolic rate goes down, which almost guarantees that you're going to gain the weight right back. The good thing about exercise is it maintains your metabolic rate, especially resistance exercise like weight training. But aerobics is also very important, because aerobics actually burns more fat in the time involved because of the increased oxygen intake. So in other words, these experts say that it stimulates your appetite. Now, speaking for myself personally, I've always noticed all these years I've been training, right after a workout, my workouts average anywhere from 1 to 2 hours maximum. The longer workouts that I do are the days that I do aerobics. I do about a half hour of aerobics. It's no more than, I never do more than an hour and a half or an hour of weight training. But, sometimes it goes to just under 2 hours. and that involves weight training and aerobics. But what I've noticed is I have no appetite. I've never been hungry right after a workout for several hours. I literally I cannot have anything other than a drink. Food is repulsive to me for about 2-3 hours after a workout. I have no desire to eat at all. And I when I read this stuff about how exercise stimulates the appetite, I'm thinking, what the hell are they talking about? I've never felt that. There's several things involved, but a new study came out, and that's mainly the main purpose of this video. Well, let me put it this way. Let's switch gears for a second. You've probably heard of lactic acid. Lactic acid, for many years, it was referred to as the stuff that causes muscle burn. Like, let's say you're engaged in a hard set. Towards the end of the set, you'll feel a burning sensation in muscle. It's a painful sensation which causes you to stop doing the set right away. And that's always been attributed to lactic acid. And lactic acid was always known as a primary cause of muscle fatigue. In other words, it made your muscles give up more or less. But in recent years, they've discovered it's not lactic acid per se. Lactic acid is composed of lactate and also hydrogen ions. The hydrogen ions are what constitute the acid portion. And when lactic acid is released in the body, the lactate disassociates from the hydrogen ions. Now, so you have lactate and hydrogen ions. The hydrogen ions, yes, they are very acidic. They inhibit energy-producing enzymes in muscle, and enzymes involve muscle contraction, and they do cause the end of a set. Excessive acidity is painful. It's caused by hydrogen ions, not lactate. What happens with the lactate is it leaves the muscle, and it travels in the blood to the liver, where it's actually converted back into glucose in a process called gluconeogenesis. Once it's converted into glucose, it travels back to the muscle where it can be actually used as fuel. So the big revolution in lactate physiology, if you want to call it that, was that the lactate, rather than being a fatigue product, it's actually an energy. It's a very useful energy substance for muscle. Now they have something called the lactate threshold. That's something different. That's when you're working out aerobically, and the intensity starts to elevate, where it gets to the point where you start to feel that same muscle burn that you would with, let's say, resistance exercise. That's caused also by an increase in lactic acid, but specifically hydrogen ions in the muscle, and that's an indicator of muscle fatigue. It's also an indicator that you've passed from aerobic exercise into anaerobic exercise, because more lactic acid is produced mainly during anaerobic exercise rather than aerobic exercise. Now, what does this have to do with anything? Okay. Now, I mentioned earlier how they say that some people think that exercise stimulates the appetite, therefore it's of no use in losing body fat, which is ridiculous to begin with. But what I find interesting is they just discovered a substance. They know, scientists have known for years that there's something produced in the body that actually causes a loss of appetite immediately after exercise. They didn't know what it was, however, until a new study, which was published in Science. I'm holding it in my hand. And the title is "An Exercise-Inducible Metabolite That Suppresses Feeding and Obesity." Now, this is a study that involved mice, racehorses. Racehorses, by the way, have extremely high VO2 max. In other words, they have an extreme capacity to use oxygen. So, they're good subjects for certain types of studies. And the third part of the study involved humans. So this study involved both animals and humans, therefore it's valid. But, I'm not going to get into all the it's an extremely technical study. But, to make a long story short, is they discovered that immune cells, epithelial lining in tissues, several other parts of the body produce a substance that basically combines lactate with the amino acid phenylalanine. It's a lactate-phenylalanine combination. And this substance is what potently turns off the appetite after exercise. And a lot of it depends on the intensity of the exercise. In humans, they discovered that sprinting produces the greatest release of the lactate phenylalanine, followed by resistance exercises second, and endurance exercises third. Now, based on that, considering that sprinting is usually the most intense type of exercise, because the type of weight training, what they refer to as resistance training, usually is like, this kind of stuff that most of they're like college students who don't really use any level of intensity. I'm assuming that a high level of intensity will also equal a higher level of the release of lactate phenylalanine, and therefore it would have a greater effect on knocking out your appetite right after exercise. Now, they found that sprinting exercise, the lactate phenylalanine lasts in the blood as long as 12 hours. That was a mouse study. They're not sure how long it lasts in humans, but they know that with these types of exercise, like resistance, it does last several hours. So what would we say? What can we say? What can we add this up? Hold on. Anyway, what we could say about all this is that exercise, quite to the contrary of what some people say, is an actual appetite suppressant. And now we know the reason why, because of this release of a combination of lactate and phenylalanine. Now you notice I said a combination, because when they give lactate alone and they give phenylalanine alone, phenylalanine is an essential amino acid. But when they give them alone or separately, it has no effect on appetite. It's only when the two are combined, like a dipeptide almost, even though lactate isn't an amino acid, but when they're kind of bonded together, lactate and phenylalanine, that's when it has the great appetite suppressing effects. So to sum it all up, again, I don't want to go into too much detail about all the chemistry involved. You don't really have to know. I know some people will say, what supplements can I use to increase, I want to go on a diet, lose body fat and this and that. What can I eat to increase lactate phenylalanine? Actually, there is no nutrient. Your body produces it on its own very effectively, and it's produced during exercise. So the answer to that question is very simple: exercise. And the higher the intensity, the greater the release of this of lactate phenylalanine, and the greater will be the appetite suppressive effects. So again, the notion that exercise is not effective or useful for body fat loss is complete nonsense. And by the way, this lactate phenylalanine combo is far more potent than any of the drugs that doctors give out. The drugs that doctors give out to promote body fat loss are usually some form of appetite suppressant, most of them. In other words, they suppress the appetite. Supposedly, you'll consume less calories and therefore lose fat. They work to a certain extent. They're not really that great. But this stuff, this natural stuff produced by the body, is much, much more potent than any pharmaceutical fat loss drug. And it's produced in the body. You don't have to do anything but exercise. Now, will having a meal or a carbohydrate or something like that, will it suppress this? And for example, when you when you have carbohydrate right before you work out or during a workout, it can stimulate insulin release, and insulin can interfere with body fat release during exercise. Now, will this stuff interfere? In other words, will eating, let's say, a carbohydrate meal or eating a meal, let's say an hour before the workout or something like that, will that kind of block the release of lactate phenylalanine? No. They've shown in the animal studies and the human studies, what you eat doesn't affect it. It does not affect. That's great news. That means that all you have to do is exercise, and it'll still be released. Now, this is a new study. It just came out. Now that they've identified this particular combo, meaning lactate phenylalanine combo, I'm sure that some pharmaceutical companies will try and figure out a way to produce that as a drug, as a weight loss drug, because there's $1 billion market for weight loss drugs, and this stuff would be very effective, more effective than any currently existing weight loss drug. However, since it is a natural substance, it can't be patented. So to produce this as a drug, the companies would have to tweak the structure somehow, where it's not exactly the same as the natural substance, but it will have the same activity in the body. I'm sure that certain types of chemists or drug experts will be able to do that. Whether it ever happens, I couldn't tell you, because this stuff is literally hot off the press. This is brand new. It's not even any. You won't find this in any exercise physiology textbook. Nowhere. This is a brand new discovery. So, exercise does help you lose body fat. And remember, if you don't exercise and you go on any type of diet, I don't care what type of diet it is, most of your weight loss, up to 50%, will be lean mass, muscle, and not just fat. A lot of it will be muscle. And when you lose muscle, your metabolism drops, your resting metabolism, which just about guarantees a regain of the lost weight. So exercise is very important for weight loss. So that's about it for this video. If you want more information on nutrition, exercise science, ergogenic aids, anti-aging research, effective fat loss techniques or methods, ergogenic aids, hormonal therapy, women's health and fitness, subscribe today to my Applied Metabolics newsletter, www.appliedmetabolics.com. When you subscribe, I'll send you an invitation to join my private Applied Metabolics Facebook page, where each day I post new information on nutrition, exercise science, and medicine. And also, when you subscribe, I'll send you an invitation to, current subscribers only can send me short questions to my Applied Metabolics webpage, and I will answer them only to current subscribers. I don't answer unsolicited questions. So that's about it for this video. If you want to have the best friend you'll ever have, go to your local shelter and adopt a dog. Take care.